Wow. After Garth and Senior Magistrate have spoken, I don't know if I can say much more that can trump that. Not to mention, Professor Newton. The other thing I wanted to mention too, I'm going to give a feature address. But how can I give a feature address when we have the Honorable Prime Minister here? When he speaks, that's the feature. Yeah. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson, Ms. Diana Francis, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs. And we want you all to give her a round of applause, please. She did an excellent job. And she has been the fulcrum of this whole project in getting it to reality. Although I'd like to call my name, I rely on Diana and members of my staff. Zelia Wilson, is she here? And Tanker, Andrew Weeks. They have been sleeping here over the last few days and working well beyond the call of duty. Your Excellency, Sir Tapley, please permit me to adopt the protocol that has been established, save and accept that I crave your indulgence to put me to recognize, to acknowledge the Honorable Prime Minister and my other cabinet colleagues who are here. I note that we did not mention the Deputy Prime Minister who came in where the matter is going, but Honorable Sean Richards, we have the Honorable Janelle and the Honorable Lindsay Grant, well, Janelle Powell, and the Honorable Wendy Phipps, all here. And all those who couldn't come, we understand it's a difficult time and a busy time. I want also to recognize Your Lordship, Justice Ermin Moyes, who took time out to be here today. And I think that we should have maybe invited you to speak, because currently Justice Moyes chairs the committee that looks after mediation. He has taken over from Justice Ventos when he left and continues to hold the program together from that perch. I also want to acknowledge retired Justice Pauletta Lance, who is here with us, and we have asked her to come and participate in the ceremony and to really help us in unveiling the building at the end. I must mention, of course, members of the magistracy, Senior Magistrate. You have Magistrate Hill Hector and Magistrate Donna Harris, who are here with us. Magistrate Fitzroy Eddy as well, because they are the ones who really do a lot of work in the summary courts that we have here in St. Kitts. Members of the Inner and Outer Bar, senior public officers, invited guests all, good afternoon. It is indeed a pleasure for me to address you today on this special occasion, the opening of this new judicial and legal services building in this complex. It signals, it reinforces the commitment of the Government of National Unity, the Team Unity Administration, to pursue the highest levels in the administration of justice in our country. We expect that this new building and the services that it will provide greater access to justice for our people. It signals our commitment to the rule of law and our belief in the universal principles that the government and its officials and agents are accountable under the law, that the laws are clear, publicized, stable, fair, and protect fundamental rights, including the security of persons and property, that the process by which the laws are enacted, administered, enforced, is accessible, fair, and efficient, and that access to justice is provided by competent, independent, and ethical adjudicators, attorneys or representatives, and judicial officers who are sufficient in number, have adequate resources, and reflect the makeup of the communities they serve. We are all servants of the law, so that we may be free. Those are the words of the Roman senator, Cicero, Marcus Tullius Cicero, some couple of thousand years ago. And they're very important words because they go to the heart of what we do here today. And when we speak of the rule of law, we stand behind that. The Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs commends this annex to the main court building in the Sir Lee Elmore Judicial and Legal Services Complex to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. As you would have heard, this edifice will house 3 different entities, namely a 3rd Magistrates Court Chamber in District A, a mediation center, and a new law library. The 3rd Magistrates Court Chamber, a new Magistrates Court Chamber in the Annex, will complement the work being conducted in the 2 other Magistrates Court Chambers in the main court building, and will be dedicated primarily on in-camera, juvenile, and family matters, and some civil matters, matters pertaining to children in conflict and so on, conflict with the law, will be heard in this court and away from public scrutiny. Some members of staff of the main building will be relocated to this facility to assist with the duties that will now be conducted and to alleviate the current space challenge that currently exists in the Magistrates Department. I also want to talk a little bit, if I may, about the Summary Court and its work, because despite the challenges that we have had over the last 18, 20, nearly 2 years, brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic, the court has functioned admirably this year. We have had more than 3,000 matters that have been filed. There has been a backlog because in 2020, there were a number of matters that could not be heard. There were lockdowns and in-person hearings were anathema. Social distancing, physical distancing meant that there were a number of matters that were traversed. But this year, the court has worked diligently to try to reduce the backlog. Since about January or so, we have introduced Zoom hearings in the Magistrate Court. And of course, this is only restricted to certain types of matters. The magistrate has been able to hear evidence by Zoom. People not living here in St. Kitts have been given evidence. If you're incapacitated in wheelchairs and so forth, you can give it evidence by Zoom. And this has been one of the measures that has been used to assist us to keep the wheels turning in the Summary Court. Lawyers can stay in their offices and do call-overs. A call-over, you could have 150 cases in one day. But a lot of them can be managed where there needs to be an in-person hearing. These can be scheduled. But it means that we have found ways to keep the court system functioning at a time when a lot of us, a lot of the world has been shutting down due to COVID. And we must give tremendous applause to the senior magistrate and his team of lawyers to keep the court going. One of the innovations that came this year that is particularly exciting, I believe, is the concept of night court. When Team Unity came to office in 2015, our manifesto at that time indicated that we would introduce night court. And I must say this year, it has been a reality because from 5 to 8, on a number of days, going back to February, there have been matters being heard by the night court. As a matter of fact, some of your lawyers will know we send out the lists, and I'll come back to it a little later, but if you look on our website, the website of the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs, and you look at the magistracy, and there is a section that actually publishes all of the matters that are filed, that are to be heard in all of our courts on any day. And so I happen to know that just yesterday, Monday, there was a night court of 38 matters that was scheduled just for yesterday. And in speaking to the senior magistrate today, there were trials yesterday between 5 and 8. And so the night court, along with Zoom hearings and others, is a way in which the administration of justice in St. Kitts and Nevis is functioning, and how we have to work to reduce the backlog, to keep our people being able to access the courts, the access to justice that we speak about. I think, too, that it's important to note that the third court, therefore, will add to the thrust to try to deal with this whole backlog of keeping the wheels of justice turning. Currently, one of our magistrates sits almost every day, and the other two share one court, so one sits 2 days, the other 3 days. That's in District A. And of course, we have Magistrate Hill Hector, who sits in District B. And it's important for me to note now that next week, Tuesday, at 2 o'clock, we are going to have the opening of, I hope I'm not taking your thunder, Minister of National Security, Prime Minister. We open a new national security facility and judicial office in Sandy Point. The Sandy Point Police Station and the Magistrates Court there had been closed some years ago. And a new facility has now been built and is ready to open next Tuesday afternoon. What had happened, matters in District B were being held in Diepbe, at the Diepbe Police Station, and you're talking about matters from Lodge, all the way over to St. Paul's, would be held in that facility and further afield. But you're talking about where it's not always easy to get transportation. If you're taking a bus, you have lesser means, you don't have transportation. While the court in Sandy Point deals all the way from, where is that, West Farm, Challengers, all the way to Newton Ground. And so now we'll be able to schedule going forward some days in Sandy Point, some days in the Diepbe, to be able to cater the people in the outer limits of Bastia to get access to justice. Access to justice is a critical component of the administration of justice. If we speak about court-connected mediation, it is something that you have heard that the Chief Justice, Dame Janice Pereira, has met with me on a number of occasions to try to see how we in St. Kitts and Nevis could help to get that goal that President Garth spoke about, of getting the majority of matters that are filed in the civil court by civil claim to be resolved in mediation. Alternative dispute resolution is critical because it helps everyone, litigants, the court, everyone, if we can, in a very timely manner, costly, less costly, saving money, a matter that can take months and 1 into years, is something that two people sitting down with an intention to settle, to resolve, can be done in half an hour. It can be done in a very short time. And so the concept of court-connected mediation is one in which the court has been very dedicated to, very interested to. And a couple of years ago, the Chief Justice sent an emissary down to us, and we met. He wanted us to consider going outside to buy a building, to go next door to rent places. But out of that is one of the germs of the idea that why not utilize the space here at the judicial complex to do so. I should point out that mediations were generally held when no matter would have been scheduled in one of the two main courts. Then before that was only one court. A mediation could be held in 1 or 2 rooms if they were available. And so it was very difficult at times to schedule those mediation hearings. I should also point out too that for many years we have only had a complement of 2 mediators. And we must give kudos to Mr. Dennis Freddie Knight and Michelle de Lacadre, who for many years have been the only mediators that we have had and have done yeoman service to keep this matter going. I think it would be last year, however, the court, the Chief Justice and others, was able to help us to get the first cohort of trainees to go through a mediation hearing. And that went well. There was a passing out parade, if you want to call it that, at the Marriott sometime last year. And again this year, earlier this year, we have had another training of a cohort of 25 individuals. And as you have heard, you have the whole gamut of professions of people coming forward, volunteering to be part of this process. We have had, for instance, this year, mediations in which you have had a land surveyor, James Buchanan, Jeffers, insurance manager. He has been one. And we have had Bishop Ron Dublin Collins, that's the religious pastor we talk about. But they have engineers and, of course, lawyers as well, who all have volunteered to come forward for training. And we have a cohort, a whole list of people that you, as a litigant, someone who wants to do mediation, can agree with the other side on someone you have confidence in to assist you to settle your matter. In the building, we have 3 rooms dedicated to mediation that can happen at the same time. We have staff, mediation coordinator, Mrs. Teslin Flanders, who has been doing the work all along, but she'll get support as well, and we'll use the technology to help her in scheduling and that type of stuff. But the real issue is that here we have another tool, if you want to call it that, in terms of being able to settle disputes between our citizens in a timely way, in a way that can save them costs, and which we can see the administration of justice moving, getting forward and moving upwards. The New Law Library. This has been a significant investment. And as you would have heard, we have been fortunate to have had friends in good places. We reached out to Professor Velma Newton a couple of years ago, and we kept in touch with her. And we have done other work with her. Impacts Justice is a very critical and important tool that Global Canada has assisted us and helped to fund in a number of ways in our region. It's just so we have been fortunate to access the support that has been granted, and we have been lucky to have gotten very important specialized law books. In addition to what Professor Newton would have had, we have the traditional periodical. We have All England, and of course there would be Halsbury's Laws, not the latest edition. We go back to edition 3. And those of you who practice would know that the more modern versions may not really coincide with the laws that we have here. So we are able to cover the gamut of areas. Perhaps the most interesting thing as well in the library would be the fact that we are going to have search engines. So it's not just the hard copy, the specialized books written by experts, but we now have access for those who don't have them in their offices to be able to come to the library, sit down behind a computer, and get access through such search engines as LexisNexis, Justice, Hines, online, and so on. And we'll be adding other search engines as we go forward and we'll get the wherewithal to do so. But it allows practitioners, litigants in person, students, whether at the CFBC or those who are taking online, distance learning, the general public to be able to come to this library and access volumes, access systems that allow us to get access to important and critical information. We have been very fortunate as well to have been able to seek, we advertised regionally, I must say, and had a number of people advertised, and we were able to select Ms. Asha Moncrief. Asha, you'll hear later, is a Jamaican, and she was working in the courts of law in Trinidad, and we were able to steal her away. And she has been here with us, helping us to put this library together. She has been here for some months, I must tell you, getting the volumes organized, and we feel very good that Asha has come and chosen to be with us and will look after the library in a way that I think will make the whole system work very well. I think there was a question about whether we pay or don't pay. Those are things that we will be hearing a lot about, and we'll still have to work out those details. To use the search engines, clearly, is a cost. The other things you can use for free, and so on. But we would want to ensure that whatever we do is sustainable. We don't lose books, that we're able to keep it going and to build from strength to strength. To date, we have more than 1,000 books on the shelves upstairs. And when you walk through, you'll see that there's space for more. And so we will be coming after you and asking for donations. We want clean books and that type of stuff. But we will build out the library, and will be one that we will all be very proud about. I want to look at the construction. How did we do this? How did we put it together? And some of us will remember that there would have been the old electoral building that was here, the Pinders building, and it was disused. But we were able to conceive how to go up and come back, to utilize the footprint here in the best way to get the most out of it. And we have to commend Mr. Byron Dillon-Sergiu, the architect from Public Works, who really superintended that work and got us going, as well as project managers from Public Works Department. But most of all, I would like to thank Mr. Bertie Lodane, contractor, who has done an excellent job in bringing this building to life, and who has been over the last few weeks been working with us to get ready for today. And Bertie and his men have done a very exceptionally good job, and we are happy that he continues to work in the interests of our people in St. Kitts and Nevis. I mentioned already that I wanted to thank my staff, P.S. Diana Francis, Assistant Secretary Zelia Wilson, Andrew Tanker Weeks, and others. Today we have Janelle, is helping us with protocol, and Robin, and there's Crystal, and others in our staff who are all helping us to get this thing done. The Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs has had approaches from some people in our community about what this building should be named. And I must tell you that some names were put forward to us, and I was able to make a proposal to the cabinet on how to do this. And I should say that yesterday, the cabinet has voted and agreed to name this building after Sir S.W. Tapley Seaton. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, You all will recall that it was on the Wednesday, the 1st of September 1982, that the courthouse that was on this footprint was burnt down. Very, very sad and tragic day, because that courthouse had been in existence for more than 150 or 170 years, going back to the 1820s. It was a wooden building. It held our records, our birth records, all our records, and most of them were destroyed. It was a sad day in essence, because although there was a court, large court, there was a registry that was there in that building. On the top floor, there was also the general public library as well, that had gone for many years and had some wonderful documents in it. All of that was burnt down in September 1982. At the time, the Attorney General of St. Kitts and Nevis was Learned Counsel, Tapley Seaton. And so he set about to form a committee and was able to put together the committee that led to the rebirth of this compound, the creation of the judicial complex that's there. And we should also note that Sir Tapley would have been the first Attorney General of an independent St. Kitts and Nevis from 1980 to 1995. Sir Tapley has served as President of the Bar. He has served in many important positions in our society, in civic positions, whether it is in heritage, the Heritage Trust, whether it was at the Chamber of Industry and Commerce. He has been something of a legal luminary, and you've heard even Professor Newton has recognized how he had been able to encourage the bringing into fruition here in the region of impact justice. I should point out too that Sir Tapley also was part of the regional organizations of the Bar Council, ACBA, and others. So he has made an indelible mark on our legal fraternity, and of course we had to speak with Sir Tapley to get his consent, and he has graciously consented to accept to have the building named the S.W. Tapley Seaton Annex. And so we would want to unveil a plaque at the end of the ceremony to have the building named after Sir Tapley. I should also point out too that the proposal that went to the cabinet also proposed that the law library be named after Miss Eulalie Byron. Eulalie Byron would have been the librarian here in St. Kitts, Nevis and Anguilla from 1950 to 1980. And she was the first black librarian that we have had. She was trained in Trinidad, and she would have built the library system that is here. And we have with us, of course, Judge Lands would have worked with Mrs. Byron in her work, and so I think also we have Mrs. Ballet, who is here, would have been, I'm not sure if Vanta Walters is here, but these are people who would have grown, Vanta Archibald, grown up with Mrs. Byron in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, well, 70s at least. And we are happy to say that the cabinet acceded to our proposal that the library be named the Eulalie Byron Law Library in commemoration of the work that she did in creating and managing the law library that we had here on this footprint so many moons ago, that made an indelible impression on so many young and not so young people as they grew and studied to school. So it did seem as though it seemed to be a feature just. I'm talking too long. But I would want to thank each and every one of you. So Tapley, I'd want to commend you for having the building named after you and for gracing us with your presence today. Mr. Justice Moyes, glad you're able to come. And all of you have joined us today on this very momentous occasion. It has been really exciting to have this building grow like the phoenix out of the ashes, and to have, as it was, this very important edifice that can do so much for us here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Thank you, and thank you very much for being here.